Okay, we're back with another fantastic episode. Um, the footage you're seeing in the background is from a game that came out earlier this week called A Robot Named Fight, or maybe it was last week. I don't know. But basically, it's basically Metroid combined with Super Metroid combined with a roguelike. Um, and just looking at it, it's very Metroid-esque, Super Metroid-esque. But that's neither here nor there. I'm gonna talk about some of the gaming news of the week and how I feel about it. So yeah, let's get to it after the cut. So the elephant in the room is, you know, we have to talk about it because it's really big and, um, and it has to be mentioned. What am I talking about? PewDiePie. And using the N-word. And now he's made some type of half-assed apology where, I'm sorry if I offended people. Look, man, it has nothing to do with people being offended and everything to do with the fact that, um, you know, these are words that you don't use in polite company. It's like you don't use the four-letter C word in polite company. You don't call someone, a faggot or a kike in polite company. These are derogatory terms that are only really typically used to dehumanize a person. So, like, why would someone think this is an acceptable phrase to say? I won't understand. But the dude said this. He's like, I'm gonna call this person the N-word, and like I've heard some people try to make an excuse for it. Well, he was playing. He was playing a very. It was a high pressure situation. The dude was playing a video game, okay? And because the other player he was playing against basically said something that he felt, did something that he felt was against the core of the game, he used the N-word. Here's the problem. There are literally, there's a myriad of frustration words that this dude could have said aside from the N-word. He could have used a word that's synonymous with having sex. He could use or being screwed. I mean, balls, shit. I mean, there was tons of things that could have been said. And we've already talked about. Everyone's beleaguered the point to where this is unacceptable. But then the dude has the nerve to be like, well, I wanted to say something. I'm sorry that I'm offended. The fact that you don't seem to understand that it's not about people being offended with the N-word. It's that the word itself has a negative denotation and connotation. Okay? So, no, this is not cool. This is not acceptable. People shouldn't be able to get away with stuff like this. But no one says anything. They're like, well, it's, we're trying to, do whatever. And, not only that, but what this gentleman is doing is messing up people's livelihoods. Because there are people who use YouTube as a, as a form of, as a way of living. Now, I'm not saying that, I'm not one of those people like, well, if you don't have a job, because there are certain YouTubers that I actually do like, their content. I actually do like what they're doing. So look, if someone is turning this stuff into essentially, is making a living off of this. Someone messing up the ecosystem so that people can't make a living off of, you know, something that should be a viable form of living because one person doesn't know to act professionally. It's a little disconcerting, but that's neither here nor there. So basically, the elephant in the room that needs to be adjusted, that no one has talked about when it comes to PewDiePie, is that this is not the first time this dude has done this. With the Nazi imagery and in previous casts and telling the Hitler jokes and stuff like that. Like, this is, this guy is not. This is not the first time this dude has done something that's kind of racist. Okay, so at a certain point, where there's smoke, there's fire, and if there's a lot of smoke, there's fire. And some people are like, well, it was said in the heat of the moment. Look, the fact that someone would just casually throw out the N-word tells me that they probably say that quite a bit. Because in order for something to go out to be said just casually, hey, words like that, the only reason you can get comfortable enough to say something casually like that is if you say it a lot. Okay? And that's what's been going on. That's what happened. That's what's been going on. And so, no one wants to call it out, but that's what's been happening. And that is offensive to me as a gamer. That some dude would think, hey, I can use the N-word and it's gonna be okay. That's not acceptable in my opinion. I know some people are gonna be like, but what about free speech? Free speech, here's what people need to understand when it comes to free speech. Free speech means that you are allowed to say whatever the hell you want to say, okay? Without fear of criminal prosecution, okay? So you're not being thrown in jail because you said the N-word. You're not being murdered. You're not being, officially sanctioned by legal institutions for doing something. That doesn't mean that if you go to work, okay, and you just basically call everyone, like, just start calling people N-words and using slurs against Jews and women and stuff like that, yeah, you probably might get fired. And they have the right as an employer to say, we don't want to be represented by someone who would do that. That is their right, okay? There's nothing there's nothing going against your right to say whatever you want, but there's nothing against, they also have a business to run and they can say we don't want to be represented by someone who's a racist. That's their, or who, does racist or sexist things. That's their prerogative. But anyway, so at the end of the day, PewDiePie is just not a very, this has to end, and the only way this can end is if people stop putting money towards his channel. So, advertisers stop advertising with him. You hit his wallet, he'll stop doing it. And that non-apology that he did, which is what it is, it's a non-apology. I call it the Michael Vick, the Michael Vick apology. I mean, it's ridiculous, but that's what we're dealing with. So with that being said, the next section is I'm going to talk about the Nintendo Direct that came out this week, yesterday, Wednesday, after the cut. Okay, so these are just my thoughts on the information that we got from yesterday's Nintendo Direct. The 3DS is still getting a lot of support from Nintendo and third parties. So I think that the 3DS is going to continue to have a life for the next, I don't know, at least 18 months to 2 years. Maybe even maybe even 2.5 years, maybe. So 24 months, no, 30 months. It could very well happen. That being said, in regards to the elephant in the room, which is the Switch. The Switch has a lot of games coming for it. There were a few games that they didn't talk about, like Hotline Miami, not Hotline Miami, the game that's basically it's the redo of, it's the sequel to Shakedown, you know, that, forgot the name of it. The game that's basically like an homage to GTA, except set with NES graphics. Yeah, it's basically that game. We didn't hear any information about that. We didn't get a release date for Yooka-Laylee on the Switch. So, I mean, there's some games they didn't really talk about, but you know, it is what it is. But overall, I mean, this Nintendo Direct basically let us all know that there's going to be some great support for the Switch, from Nintendo and from third parties. So, yeah, you know, if you own a Switch, you will have things to play on it if you have the money to buy it. And that's a good thing, both through this holiday season and to the future holiday season. So, I mean, I can't get mad. I can't be like, oh no, man, they don't know what they're doing, those bastards. I think that this is actually a pretty smart move on Nintendo's part. Is it perfect? You know, it is what it is. Just the highlights for me for the presentation. Just this is my own personal thing. I'm not saying that, you know, this has to be the same for everyone. Is Octopath Traveler, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Mario Odyssey, that new Wolfenstein game. I actually plan on getting that. Doom was a total surprise for me. And the fact that Bethesda is putting some decent games on the system is amazing. It's also kind of amazing that there's some new content coming to the Switch version of LA Noire. I don't know if it's going to be perfect, but I mean, you know, new content always is appreciated with a port to a Nintendo system. Like, it can't just be like, it's the same thing you had before, just slightly different. So yeah, I think overall it's some pretty good stuff going on. So, that's all I have to say about that. We'll talk about upcoming events and such after the cut. Alright, so basically now it's time to talk about upcoming events. We have a couple of things coming up this weekend. Saturday, my new show on my channel, Sci-Fi Power Hour-ish, is going to be going off. We're going to be talking about none other than DC and Marvel properties that have kind of like maybe had installments years ago but don't have installments now. You know, things we would like to see from them. Also, lesser known comic book properties that we would like to see something done with. So, yeah, look forward to that. That's going to be 7 to 8:30 Eastern Standard Time this Saturday, p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Sunday, as per the usual, we will be doing a BS Busters. We'll talk about 3DS. We'll talk about the Xbox One. We'll talk about, you know, the news of the week. So look forward to that. So yeah, that's upcoming events. Enjoy the rest of the video. This is A Robot Named Fight. we'll wrap things up. So that being said, that's the end of this video, and have a good day.